A massive 6-3 Supreme Court victory just dropped, and its ripples are being felt across every sector of American life. This isn't just another legal update. This is the moment the highest court in the land officially drew a line in the sand, and over 600,000 people are about to feel the immediate impact of a ruling that fundamentally reshapes the balance of power between citizens and their government. We're breaking down exactly what this means, why legal experts are calling this one of the most significant decisions in decades, and most importantly, how this ruling protects your rights while restoring accountability to a system that's been operating in the shadows for far too long. For years, a legal battle has been brewing behind the scenes. It's a battle over who actually has the power to enforce the law in America. Is it the executive branch accountable to voters through elections? Is it individual district judges who can halt national policy with a single order? Or is it federal agencies operating surveillance programs that most Americans don't even know exist? Today, the Supreme Court answered those questions with a decisive ruling that affects not just the 600,000 individuals directly involved in this case, but potentially every single American who uses a bank account, sends a text message, or crosses a border. The Supreme Court handed down this decision with a 6-3 vote. On one side, you have the majority led by the originalist wing of the court, who looked at the plain text of the Constitution and the clear limits it places on government power. On the other, the three dissenting justices argued that modern challenges require modern solutions that the founders couldn't have imagined, and that constitutional protections need to be balanced against practical enforcement needs. The numbers tell a story that most mainstream media outlets are intentionally glossing over. We are talking about 600,000 individuals who held what is called temporary protected status. But here is the critical part that connects to a much bigger issue. The average person on TPS has been in the United States for over 12 years. Think about that. 12 years on a status that has the word temporary right in the name. But this case isn't just about immigration status. It exposes a fundamental problem in how our government has been operating. The same legal tactics, the same judicial overreach, and the same bureaucratic extensions that kept temporary immigration protections permanent for over a decade are the exact same tactics being used to expand government surveillance, freeze bank accounts without warrants, and monitor millions of Americans without probable cause. TPS was originally created back in 1990. It was designed to be a short-term humanitarian response. If a country had a natural disaster or armed conflict, we would give their citizens a safe place to stay for 6 to 18 months. That was the limit. But over the last few decades, bureaucratic science turned those months into years, and those years into decades. What was supposed to be a temporary bridge became a permanent residence for over 500,000 people without a single vote from Congress. Now hold that pattern in your mind, because it's about to become very relevant when we talk about financial surveillance. In 2018, a different federal agency launched what they called a temporary emergency program. The Financial Crimes Enforcement Network, known as FinCEN, sits inside the Treasury Department and began collecting detailed transaction data on millions of Americans. The program was supposed to last 90 days maximum as an emergency measure following a series of financial crimes. Sound familiar? 90 days turned into 6 years of continuous surveillance. The same playbook: create something temporary, extend it indefinitely, and by the time anyone challenges it in court, argue that it's been in place so long that ending it would cause chaos. Before this Supreme Court ruling, FinCEN was collecting data on over 30 million banking transactions per month. That's not 30 million suspicious transactions. That's 30 million routine transactions from ordinary Americans buying groceries, paying rent, and transferring money to family members. The agency wasn't getting warrants for specific individuals. They were vacuuming up everything and using algorithms to decide who looked suspicious after the fact. In this particular case, 600,000 Americans who sued were small business owners whose transaction patterns triggered automated flags in FinCEN's system. These weren't criminals. These were entrepreneurs who made frequent deposits, transferred money between business and personal accounts, and conducted transactions that looked unusual to a computer program but were completely legal. E-government's argument in both situations was remarkably similar. If one administration has the authority to grant a temporary status or launch a temporary surveillance program, they would be able to keep extending it indefinitely as long as they can articulate a reason. You cannot have oversight when programs can be created and never ended. The Supreme Court looked at this pattern and said, enough is enough. They ruled that temporary actually means temporary. Whether we're talking about immigration status or surveillance programs, the power to make these decisions belongs to the elected branches of government operating within constitutional limits, not to individual district judges with political agendas or federal agencies that answer to no one. But the road to this victory was blocked by forces you need to understand. Before this case reached the Supreme Court, it was held hostage in a federal court in the Northern District of California. The man behind the delay was Judge Edward Chen, an Obama appointee with a very specific background. Before he was on the federal bench, Chen spent years as a staff attorney and a national board member of the ACLU. Yes, the same ACLU that is currently suing the government to stop enforcement actions is the same organization that trained the judge who issued the orders to block the government. Chen's courtroom in San Francisco became the go-to venue for activist organizations. They knew exactly what they were going to get. Since taking the bench, Chen has ruled against executive enforcement in over 40 separate cases. He used a tactic legal experts call injunction creep. By extending deadlines month after month, year after year, he effectively created a shadow legal system where a single judge in California could dictate national policy for the entire United States. The Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, long known as the most overturned court in the country, backed him up every time. This same pattern plays out with surveillance programs. When privacy advocates have challenged bulk data collection, they've run into a different but equally frustrating roadblock. Federal agencies argue that third-party doctrine protects their programs. The basic argument goes like this: if you voluntarily share information with a bank, an internet service provider, or a technology company, you've given up your expectation of privacy in that information. Therefore, the government can obtain it without a warrant. Courts had been accepting this logic for decades, allowing agencies to bypass the Fourth Amendment by simply issuing administrative subpoenas to companies instead of getting judicial warrants to search individuals directly. What's been happening is large-scale exploitation of constitutional loopholes on multiple fronts. Agencies issue administrative subpoenas to financial institutions, telecommunications companies, and tech platforms, demanding bulk data on millions of users. These aren't judicial subpoenas approved by judges. These are internal agency demands that companies have little choice but to comply with. Then the agencies use sophisticated data analytics to search through everything, looking for patterns that might indicate criminal activity. By the time an individual finds out their data was searched, the investigation is often complete. Meanwhile, district judges issue nationwide injunctions that stop the executive branch from enforcing immigration law, even when the statutes are crystal clear. Think about the power that represents. A single judge in one district can halt the enforcement of federal law across all 50 states with the stroke of a pen. A single federal agency can monitor every transaction you make without ever presenting probable cause to a neutral magistrate. It doesn't matter if you live in Texas, Florida, or Maine. Your safety, your privacy, and your laws were being decided by people you never elected and can never hold accountable. The Constitution is very clear. Congress makes the laws and the executive branch enforces them. The Fourth Amendment protects you from unreasonable searches and requires warrants based on probable cause. Nowhere does it say a district court judge gets to veto an enforcement decision because they disagree with the policy. Nowhere does it say federal agencies can conduct mass surveillance because computers make it technically possible. What we've been seeing is forum shopping and technological exploitation, where activists find the most sympathetic judge to shut down enforcement, while agencies find the most convenient loophole to bypass constitutional protections. By the the Supreme Court can even hear these cases. The temporary status or temporary program has usually been extended so many times that advocates then argue it would be too disruptive to end it. It's circular logic designed to ensure that no one ever actually has to follow the rules. But the Supreme Court just broke that circle. They sent a loud and clear signal to every lower court and every federal agency. You cannot substitute your judgment for constitutional authority. You cannot turn temporary into permanent through bureaucratic games. The three dissenting justices, Ketanji Brown Jackson, Sonia Sotomayor, and Elena Kagan, took a very different path. In their dissents, they didn't spend much time debating constitutional text. Instead, they focused on practical consequences. Justice Jackson painted a picture of humanitarian conditions that would make deportations cruel. Justice Sotomayor described sophisticated criminal networks that would exploit privacy protections. Their argument was essentially that modern problems are too complex for 18th century constitutional principles, and that courts should defer to agency expertise and consider real-world impacts over strict legal rules. But here is the problem with that logic, and it's why the majority had to step in. If the standard for government action is simply that officials can articulate a compelling reason, then constitutional limits mean nothing. Almost every country on Earth has problems that could justify permanent protected status. Almost every category of crime could justify warrantless surveillance if we accept that fighting bad guys matters more than constitutional process. If a judge can decide we can't enforce immigration law because conditions abroad are difficult, and an agency can decide to monitor everyone's finances because criminals use banks, we have essentially created unlimited government power through judicial and bureaucratic decree. The majority was blunt in both contexts. The law doesn't require the government to explain why a temporary program is ending. It ends because it was meant to be temporary. Period. The Fourth Amendment doesn't have a technology exception just because modern tools make mass surveillance possible. Constitutional protections apply with even greater force in the digital age, not less. By trying to force the government to satisfy judicial policy preferences, or by allowing agencies to exploit third-party arrangements, the dissenting justices were trying to rewrite fundamental constitutional limits. This ruling does something far bigger than just resolving one case. It exposes how lower courts and federal agencies have been creating parallel systems that operate outside constitutional constraints. Over the past 8 years, federal district judges have issued more than 300 nationwide injunctions. During that same period, federal agencies have launched dozens of bulk surveillance programs that collect data on hundreds of millions of Americans. FinCEN's database alone contains transaction records for over 150 million American adults. That's not 150 million criminals. That's basically every American who uses the banking system. The Drug Enforcement Administration has been collecting bulk telephone records. The National Security Agency has been gathering internet metadata. Customs and Border Protection has been searching electronic devices at border crossings without warrants. When you add up every federal program that relies on bulk data collection without individualized warrants, you're looking at virtually every American being monitored. The 600,000 small business owners who were subjected to FinCEN investigations reported an average cost of $47,000 per investigation in legal fees and business disruption. That's nearly $30 billion in economic harm to people who are never charged with crimes. Meanwhile, the 600,000 individuals on TPS from Venezuela and Haiti represent just the tip of the iceberg. When you include every country that has received temporary designation over the last 15 years, you aren't looking at 600,000 people. You are looking at potentially 1.2 to 2 million individuals living in legal limbo because bureaucrats kept extending programs that were supposed to end. The Supreme Court didn't just rule on the facts of these cases, they established precedents that are going to send shockwaves through every protected population and every surveillance program in the country. This ruling closes the third-party doctrine loophole for bulk data collection. The court ruled that even if a company holds your data, you don't forfeit your Fourth Amendment rights. The government still needs probable cause and a warrant. This ruling also establishes that the executive branch does not need to justify the termination of a temporary program to a federal judge who disagrees with the policy decision. If the law says temporary, it means temporary. But there is one more detail that almost everyone is missing. While the Supreme Court gave power back to constitutional actors, there are specific dates and deadlines that are going to change everything. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem has already signaled the next phase, with enforcement actions ramping up through specific target dates in April. FinCEN has been ordered to restructure its entire surveillance operation within 90 days. Agencies that relied on bulk data collection are scrambling to develop new procedures that comply with the warrant requirement. His is where theory meets reality. For years, the Department of Homeland Security was essentially being run by district judges who blocked every enforcement action. Federal agencies operated surveillance programs that most Americans didn't even know existed. With this ruling, constitutional authority has been restored. Secretary Noem called the decision a victory for common sense, stating that previous administrations had abused and exploited temporary programs into de facto permanent status. PRI. Vasey advocates are calling this a watershed moment for Fourth Amendment protections in the digital age. But activist groups on both sides are calling the fallout a day of disruption. Immigration advocates warn of mass panic and families being torn apart. Civil liberties organizations that support surveillance reform are simultaneously worried that agencies will find new workarounds. They point to the fact that many of these individuals and programs have been operating for over a decade, and that sudden changes will cause chaos. But the majority opinion addressed this concern directly. The real chaos was caused by the courts and agencies that refused to follow constitutional limits for years. By allowing temporary to stretch into permanence and by permitting surveillance without warrants, the system created false expectations. The administration's logic is that restoring constitutional order is always worth short-term disruption. This ruling restores the incentive for legal compliance. It tells the world that the United States is no longer a country where you can bypass the system and expect judges or agencies to protect you indefinitely. It tells federal bureaucrats that they cannot use technology as an excuse to ignore the Fourth Amendment. If you think this ends with these specific programs, you haven't been paying attention. This Supreme Court victory has laid the groundwork for challenges to every similar program across the federal government. The precedent now exists to challenge DACA using the exact same logic that ended these TPS extensions. The reasoning that closed the third-party doctrine loophole applies to every surveillance program that collects bulk data. We are looking at a total restructuring of how the federal government operates, both in terms of immigration enforcement and digital privacy protection. This Supreme Court ruling has also set the stage for the 2026 midterm elections. By moving power from courts and agencies back to elected officials, parading within constitutional constraints, the Supreme Court has made every election a referendum on how that power will be used. Voters now know that whoever controls the executive branch actually has the authority to enforce immigration law. They also know that Congress needs to either authorize surveillance programs properly or shut them down. There is no more blaming activist judges. There is no more hiding behind bureaucratic complexity. The 6-3 decision we've broken down today is more than just a win for one administration or one policy outcome. It is a fundamental restoration of constitutional government. It puts temporary back in temporary protected status. It puts warrant back in Fourth Amendment protections. It prepares the country for a new era where the rules actually mean what they say. 600,000 people are now facing choices they thought they would never have to make. Millions of Americans are now protected from surveillance they never knew was happening. The law is not a suggestion, and temporary is not a synonym for permanent. Constitutional protections are not obsolete just because technology has changed. These decisions are coming fast, and the legal landscape is shifting every single day. You cannot rely on mainstream media to give you the full story because they are too busy defending the old system. If you want to stay ahead of these major legal decisions and understand how they actually impact your life, your family, and your fundamental rights, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on notifications. We are tracking every move from the Supreme Court, every enforcement update, and every constitutional challenge as this new era unfolds. What do you think? Is constitutional government finally being restored, or is this happening too fast? Let me know in the comments below.